Welcome back. Once again, time for your weekend entertainment. For regulars, you probably have seen a lot of different videos and know that I shoot two types of videos. One where I've kind of mastered something and I'm sharing what I've learned, like the top 10 mill and mini lathe mods video. This isn't one of those videos. This is the other video where I'm actually just shooting live as I figure something out and learn. So, speaking of the top 10 video, number 2 on the mini lathe was you got to get rid of vibrations on the lathe to be able to get really nice finishes. So I've got a mini lathe, the newer one with a chuck on it, which is out of balance, and I have a balancing jig now. So let me show you what happened when I put my 4-inch 3-jaw chuck in the balancing jig. Wow, I'm shocked to see this. How useful is this balancer? That is way out of balance. This is my 4-inch chuck that I thought I had pretty good. And you want to know why I've got vibrations in that lathe? So I've got to do it separately, the chuck and then the back plate, the adapter here. I'll have to machine something that will hold the adapter plate by itself and see which one's out of balance, but this is way off. Surprising, huh? That far out of balance. Alright, again too, this is all a learning curve for me. I've never done this before, so I'm messing around with a bunch of different approaches. But first, I did show in a video a while back saying that the hole pattern on the adapter plate is a hole where a bunch of metals are missing, so it's going to be out of balance. You have to make a plug for it. I do have the print for the plug up on the website, but here's the adapter plate by itself. Alright, first I'm checking the balance on the adapter plate. I happen to have a 1-inch piece of stainless here to go in here, but yeah, you can see as is off the shelf, it's way out of balance. And if you look at the hole pattern, I talked about it before, there's 2 holes that are opposite, so they cancel one another out. The 3 pattern, which mounts the chuck, it balances everything out, but there's one oddball hole. Let's see, that's the 2 that balance one another out. And shoot, you can't tell what one it is now. This, that cancels. Yeah, it's this one up here. So the little balancing slug that I talked about, put it in there, and guess what? It's in balance. So I've got that guy right, slightly off maybe. This is a crude piece of stainless. I haven't polished it or anything. But it looks like this guy's okay, or close enough that when I add weight to the chuck, I can compensate for any minor issues here. Just great. Not sure how I'm going to fix that without the adapter plate. The chuck itself is off. What is that? That's jaw 1. Position 1. I guess I can weigh the jaws, because I weighed the other set of jaws. 2 of them come in at 108 grams, 1 comes in at 106, and I know this thing is sensitive enough to pick that up. Look at that. Jeez. I got some work to do. Alright, the rest of the little segments here are just me trying to figure out where, what, how, why, what to do. So, what else am I going to say? Well, I think I know what it is. I'm probably not going to use this scale. I don't think it's sensitive enough, so I'll be using my gram scale. but I took it apart to weigh each piece. So far I've done it on that, and it's all coming in the same. The jaws, 3 jaws exactly the same. These guys are pretty close, but I said it was jaw number 1, which is here, opposite this oiler. They drilled out a huge chunk of steel here, because that's got to go from the face to here, which is what? Where's the ruler? So essentially a good 1/2 inch of steel is gone for this oiler, and so that would make this lighter than that. So rather than drilling out material, I think I'm just going to add weight on the inside to try to compensate for that. So let's see what happens. Curious, I was thinking, how much weight is that? This is about the same diameter, twice as long though. Yeah, so it should be probably about half of whatever this weighs. Let's see what that is. Mode, ounces, pounds, kilograms, grams. What are we talking? That's 6. That's not that much. So that would be 3 grams is missing. I don't know. In any case, I'm still going to just try adding weight and see what happens. Yeah, I'm screwing around trying to figure out how was I going to really balance this and where to put it. So with tape, I can move it around, and what this is just a bunch of strips of solder. I had an old roll, and so I just kept adding and adding until finally it's pretty much so imbalanced. So I can melt that down to some little slug and try to get it in there. It looks like, since it has to be right on this stupid gear thing, I probably can sneak it back behind here, even though I want it more in the front. And then see how that works. So let me figure out what I can melt this down in to make a nice little slug that'll fit in that spot. Alright, by now I've spent the entire day fiddling-fudding with this thing on camera and off camera, trying what seems logical and watch it not work, and then try the illogical and watch that work. So I've got a minor in physics, put on the physics engineering hat, and I'll show you what I'm going to do next. I'll bring you over here to the lathe. Alright, so I broke it down into pieces. I just want to know where the weight has to be. I don't care how much weight it is at this point, I just want to know where. So I put this in there, it was straight, and just spin it. I mark off exact same speed every time, at least with the dial. So I turn it to a specific notch here and just kind of observe what the vibrations felt like for now. Take it over to the device, you can see it's off. So I just whack it with a hammer, put a mark on it. Now I can see where, by moving it around, the vibrations get worse or better, just shifting it around. And how did I measure it scientifically? My wife's uncle, let me zoom out a bit here. There we go. My wife's uncle has tons of old phones. So I asked him, can you give me a phone that has an accelerometer in it? And it's deactivated, but just a little hacking, got it reactivated. There's no cell service, but I can get into it. Tie it into my Wi-Fi, go to Google Play, download a bunch of vibration apps. Find one that works with the accelerometer, bingo. So you move it, and it shows me X, Y, and Z movements. Just sit it on the top, and I'll bring the camera over to kind of show you some of it on the top. Run it, keep shifting it around, looking at the magnitude of the vibrations until it points to the right spot. And I've got it right now set right here. That's where the weight needs to be. And pretty much so is exactly where the balancer is. So, let me bring the camera over and I can show you guys some of the vibrations. Right, that's about as good as I can get. I think you can see it in there. Turn this on and bring it up to that one spot right there. Yeah, you can start to see the red. If it's jerking that way, it's red. That way, it'll be blue, showing me it's going in the X. White's up and down. So right now it's just vibrating that way with very little white in there. And if I shift this thing around, it gets a lot worse than that. So now it's down to just figuring out how much weight has to go in that one spot. Alright, after messing with a bunch of different techniques for weight, using pieces of solder, this or that, I finally had to break out the gunpowder scale again. Turns out 2.2 grams corrects the vibration. So I had to machine a little slug and I got it in a hole behind one of the Allen screws, the socket head screws, and it balanced it out. So I'll show you the final ear vibrations, but just like I figured with the grinding wheels, same thing as the chuck, grams count. I don't get how that little bit makes that much of a difference when you take your car tire in, which is seriously more weight, not a balance, and they spin it and they just put a few ounces of weight on it, and your tires are spinning probably the same speed as this when you're doing 60, 80 miles an hour down the freeway, and you don't feel any vibration. Yet 2 grams makes a serious, significant difference. So I learned, I'll probably learn some more here over time playing with it, but I'll show you the final. Well, it definitely made an improvement. See if I can zoom in on the water here. Keeps fogging up. Yeah, might be able to see the vibrations, but let's turn it on here. Yeah, that water's pretty still. That's running right now at the speed that I typically turn at, but there is a speed where I can hit where it just really, there you go, just really starts vibrating, but I don't go that high, just one speed, one particular harmonic, I guess you call it, but that definitely made an improvement. So there you go. I know I've got the back plate in balance with that slug I put in there and then just drilling that out. That was 5/16 that I went through all the way through on that little piece. Alright, I guess I'm going to take the chuck back apart, just do some maintenance and cleanup and say good enough and see how the finishes come out on it. Hope it helped somebody.